Today, we're going behind the front lines of World War II, but not to the battlefield you know. We're diving into a secret war, one fought with math and machines, not tanks and planes. And at the very heart of it was one single incredible target, the Enigma machine.
Just try to imagine that. That was the grim reality for the Allied command. Every German U-boat hunting their ships, every Luftwaffe air raid, every single troop movement. It was all coordinated with messages that were completely invisible. The enemy wasn't just a step ahead, it was like they were operating in a whole different dimension of secrecy. Finding the key to that fortress wasn't just important, it was everything.
Take a look at this number. Over 150 million. That's the number of ways the Enigma machine could scramble a single letter on any given day. It's a mathematical challenge so huge, so astronomical, that the Germans were convinced it gave them absolute, unbreakable security.
So let's get properly introduced to the antagonist of our story. This thing, it looks more like an old office typewriter than a weapon of war, doesn't it? But this device was the absolute linchpin of the entire German military strategy. It was, for all intents and purposes, the impossible lock.
And here's what's so fascinating about Enigma's origins. It wasn't dreamed up in some secret weapons lab. Nope, it was a commercial product available in the 1920s designed for businesses who wanted to protect their trade secrets. But the German military, they saw its potential and completely transformed this simple business tool into a sophisticated, terrifying instrument for weaponizing information.
So how did this thing actually work? Well, it was a pretty amazing electromechanical marvel. You press a key, let's say A. An electrical signal shoots through a plug board, which already swaps pairs of letters, and then it hits a series of 3 rotating scramblers, or rotors. These rotors reroute the signal and a totally different letter, maybe a Q, lights up on the board. But here's the crucial part. With every single key press, the rotors click forward, changing the entire electrical path. So the next time you press A, you're not going to get Q again. You'll get something else entirely.
And here's the feature that made this a complete nightmare for codebreakers. Every single night, at the stroke of midnight, every Enigma operator across the entire German military would change their machine settings based on a secret daily key. This meant any progress you made one day was totally useless the next. The clock was always ticking against you.
Now, when you hear the story of cracking Enigma, it's often all about Britain. But you know what? That's not where the story begins. The very first critical breakthrough, that first tiny crack in this impossible lock, came from a place the world had tragically underestimated.
You need to remember these names: Marian Rejewski, Jerzy Różycki, and Henryk Zygalski. Long before the war even officially started, Polish intelligence saw what was coming. So they put together this brilliant team of mathematicians who, using nothing but pure math and some smuggled intelligence, did the impossible. They completely reverse-engineered the Enigma's internal wiring.
In this moment right here, it just shows you what the stakes were. In July 1939, just a few weeks before Poland was invaded, they invited British and French intelligence to a top-secret meeting. And they didn't just share their research, they handed over 2 working physical replicas of the Enigma machine. They gave the Allies the only head start they would get in the secret war that was about to begin.
Okay, so with this absolutely vital groundwork laid by the Poles, the fight then shifts to a quiet, unassuming country estate in England. This place, Bletchley Park, became the nerve center for an intellectual assault on Enigma unlike anything the world had ever seen.
It's a really interesting question when you think about it. The British military knew right away that soldiers with guns weren't going to win this particular battle. No, they needed a completely different kind of army.
And what an army it was! They recruited the nation's absolute sharpest minds, and not just from universities. They brought in national chess masters, expert linguists, and they even recruited people through crossword puzzle competitions in the daily newspaper. They were looking for anyone who could see patterns where others just saw chaos.
And among this strange collection of geniuses was a man named Alan Turing. And he had this profound yet simple realization. Human brains, no matter how brilliant they were, could never move fast enough to check 150 million combinations a day. It just wasn't possible. The only way to consistently beat a machine like Enigma was to build a bigger, faster machine to do the work for you. That idea alone would basically lay the groundwork for modern computing.
And so they did it. Turing's machines, which they nicknamed the bombs, started working. But their success created a brand new, absolutely terrifying problem. See, knowing the enemy's every single move is useless if the enemy finds out that you know.
The intelligence they were getting from these decryptions was given a code name, Ultra. In protecting the secret of Ultra, the simple fact that Enigma was broken became even more important than winning any single battle. Because if Germany ever found out, they'd just change the machine and the Allies would be completely blind all over again.
This meant they had to come up with plausible cover stories for every single action they took. So here's how it worked. Let's say Bletchley decrypts a U-boat's location. They can't just send a ship to sink it. Oh, no. Instead, they dispatch a reconnaissance plane on a routine patrol over that exact area. And only after that plane had accidentally spotted the submarine could they then send in a destroyer. The Germans would just chalk it up to terrible luck, never suspecting their codes were broken.
This incredibly elaborate, high-stakes game of deception wasn't just a theory. The intelligence from Ultra directly, and I mean directly, shaped the outcome of the war's most critical battles.
Let's just take the Battle of Britain. The Royal Air Force was massively outnumbered. They were facing a much, much bigger German Luftwaffe. On paper, they should have been wiped out, but they had a secret weapon. They knew the German order of battle almost every single day.
Thanks to Ultra, the RAF didn't have to waste precious fuel and pilots flying endless patrols. They knew where the German bombers were headed. They could meet them head-on, concentrating their smaller force with deadly precision. This intelligence advantage was, without a doubt, the deciding factor that stopped a full-scale invasion of Britain.
And sometimes the tech war needed a little bit of old-fashioned muscle. A commando raid in Norway, officially to destroy some fish oil factories, had a secret objective: capture parts from a German patrol boat's Enigma machine. The naval rotors they grabbed were rushed back to Bletchley, and they provided the final key to breaking the U-boat codes that were literally strangling Britain's Atlantic supply lines.
So when you add up the thousands of these daily victories, some big, some small, the total effect is it's almost impossible to overstate. This wasn't just about winning a few battles. This was about fundamentally changing the timeline of history itself.
So, what was the ultimate impact of all this? Well, the consensus among most historians is simply staggering. The work done at Bletchley Park, the intelligence provided by Ultra, shortened the Second World War by at least 2 years, 2 fewer years of global conflict.
And what does shortening a war by 2 years actually mean? It means this: an estimated 14 million people, soldiers and civilians alike, who would have otherwise died, survived. That is the ultimate legacy of this secret war of minds and machines.
So it left with this question, and it's not just some historical what-if. It forces us to really consider how fragile that victory was and how a small group of eccentric thinkers fighting a secret war in the English countryside truly and completely remade the world that we all live in today.